Hey adventurers, so today is going to be a little bit of a different type of video. This is kind of probably just going to end up being me rambling quite a bit. Basically, this idea is just me talking about the state of fantasy media, and this idea came about because it's been a couple weeks now since I saw it, but I saw a article from Screenrant, which I don't particularly love Screenrant, but they said, or the headline caught my attention, as headlines are wont to do, and it said, so the headline was, "One Hobbit star has blunt reasons for not watching Rings of Power." Obviously, I have my own issues with Rings of Power, and I've talked extensively about them. But basically what this article is it's talking about how Richard Armitage, who plays Thorin in the Hobbit movies, doesn't want to, or has no interest in watching the Rings of Power. That in and of itself isn't that big of an issue. I don't really care. But it's what he says in relation, or when asked to this question, that got me thinking. I will have this, I'm not going to read the article because I don't really care about what the rest of the article is. It's just this one quote from him, probably taken out of context to some degree, I'm sure, because I don't have the full interview with him. I don't know, I haven't gone and searched it out and I haven't watched it, so I'm just taking the one quote because the one quote is actually what spurred my own thoughts on, not specifically Richard Armitage, not specifically the Screenrant article, none of that stuff. Like, I don't really care about that stuff. It's the topic that came up, and that is that idea is the state of fantasy media at the moment. And obviously books are included in that to some degree, but specifically I'm mostly talking about television and movies at the moment. So I don't really know exactly what I'll say in this, and it will likely be a lot of just me rambling, but I'd like to get some thoughts out on this because I find it an interesting and poignant topic, especially for someone like me who loves fantasy, who loves movies, who loves storytelling. So we'll just kind of see where this goes. Hopefully I will attempt to not make it too long. So basically in this article, the quote that they have of Richard Armitage is that he says, "After 2.5 years of Middle-earth, I'm not drawn to fantasy anymore. It's really, really thin. But so are the new movie choices today." So obviously he tacks on, and there's an ellipses between those, so it's possible that he says more in between it that, again, I don't know because I haven't gone and searched it all out. But so I'll briefly talk about but so are our new movie choices today, that line that he uses there. And he's right. There's a lot of, especially if we're thinking strictly fantasy and not going out into the wider audience, we've got the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we've got the DC, what is it right now, DC Cinematic Universe, or DCU, which is DC Universe. So like the Marvel movies and DC movies are superhero movies, so there's who knows how many superhero TV shows going on right now. A lot of them have ended since CW has kind of stopped making them, which I'm not really going to comment on that, but there's still a lot of superhero TV shows as well. So we've got superheroes as fantasy. We've got, what else do we really have? There's some other things, so we've got Wheel of Time, we have Witcher, we have, House of the Dragon. There was Willow that came out. I'm trying to think of what else is big and important in the fantasy. I mean, obviously, there's lots of littler things or not necessarily littler things, but things that I haven't watched because they're teen romance, what is it? It's not a rom-com, it's I don't know, all the dramas that are out there about vampires or werewolves or whatever. I guess Stranger Things is also fantasy. So there's some fantasy shows for sure. Rings of Power, I should mention that one as well. But don't really have, if you look at all of those things, in movies, we have the superhero movies, and we've got, are there any fantasy movies that are coming out at the moment? Not really. It's primarily the superhero films. We also, the fantasy movies that we are seeing coming out are remakes. Disney keeps doing its remakes. They just released The Little Mermaid, which I haven't watched and I probably won't watch because I really don't care about it. But I'm trying to think if there's really anything else that I am seeing that's come out, that is coming out right now, and there's really not that much. I mean, it's been a while now since the Hobbit movies came out, and those kind of, obviously they weren't the most well received, especially in the Tolkien community, because they don't follow the books hardly at all. And I enjoy those movies. I think they're fun movies, nearly as good as the book, and they're not nearly as good as the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but they're still, if you just want to sit down and be entertained, they're very entertaining. And I just see a lot of this fantasy media where there's not really much to it at the moment. It's either remakes or reboots, or some other way trying to add on to series and movies, franchises that have already been used up, that have already, we've got, what is it, Harry Potter just got announced to be being remade. We've got a remake, or a live action. It is technically a remake because they made the movies, but Percy Jackson is coming out. So we've got Harry Potter, we've got Percy Jackson. What was the other one that HBO was doing? I can't remember what the other one was. I think we've got an Aragon, an Inheritance Cycle series that's supposed to be coming from Disney Plus. So like there's some stuff, but a lot of it is stuff that we've already seen before, and a lot of it is stuff that we don't, the first original adaptations were great, and why should we be, they're Lord of the Rings, there's new Lord of the Rings, continue to be more Lord of the Rings stuff. That's the other one that I was seeing. But it's just, why, and here's my issue, and here's kind of where I wanted this topic to go. I guess before I get back into that, I will write because I like the way that I worded this sentence, and it's kind of sums up my thoughts in a lot of ways. And so that's in regard to this sentence, this quote from Richard Armitage. He says, "After 2.5 years in Middle Earth, I'm not drawn to fantasy anymore. It's really, really thin." And that idea that we're just not drawn to fantasy anymore is so sad, because I'm a fantasy reader. I read a lot of fantasy, and there's so many fantastic series that just aren't getting adapted because Hollywood is more in favor of adapting things that have already been adapted before, of adapting, just rebooting and remaking things all the time. And I would rather see some of these other series. There's so many that I could think of that I've read just off the top of my head that I would love to see adapted. Rune Lords by David Farland is one of those ones that I'm just loving at the moment. I know there is some Cosmere stuff from Brandon Sanderson that is working on being adapted. I know there's a First Law adaptation that just got announced. There's, what's another one? I would love to see the Lady Trent memoirs. That's one that could be a very interesting Victorian era style TV series that a lot of people would really enjoy, because it's that style that people are really liking at the moment. What else? There is a Dark Tower adaptation coming. So that's a good one. I'm trying to think of what's on my shelf, and I mean, you can look at the indie publishing sphere, and there's so much self-publishing stuff. There's so many fantastic stories in there that would be so great on film. I'm in the community. I talk to the people. I talk to a lot of self-published authors, and they're awesome, and their stories are great, and they would be super cool in film and television. Whether or not they'd want them to, that's a whole other topic for another time. There's so much remake and rebooting of fantasy series when there's so many other IPs out there. And I still haven't gotten to this quote. I guess we'll just end the video with that once I get there. I think I'm kind of wrapping up my thoughts. But I would like to see some adaptations, rather than constant reboots and remakes of series of movies or TV shows that are already fantastic, that are already really well done, that the fans love. Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, whatever it might be. We don't need more of that. I guess Star Wars is also, Star Wars is also fantasy. So like, we don't need more of the same. It's time for us to have something different. And I think I will kind of end my thoughts there, and I'll go back to this and just read this quote one more time from Richard Armitage. That's, "After 2.5 years of Middle Earth, I'm not drawn to fantasy anymore. It's really, really thin. But so are our new movie choices today." And I feel like that is kind of indicative of the current climate regarding fantasy media. And that's really sad to me, and I think that there's so much more that we could do with fantasy media. and which is why I'm excited for things like Pendragon Cycle by Daily Wire that Daily Wire is making. That's one that I'm really excited for. There's Calculated by Nova McBee is being adapted. That's more sci-fi than it is, than it is fantasy, but you could almost argue that it's fantasy pretty easily. I'm really excited for those two projects specifically, but there's so many other things. I just saw a quote from Jennifer Lawrence saying that she wanted to, or that she'd be happy to return as Katniss Everdeen, I think. And I'm just like, no, I'm ready to be done with Hunger Games. I actually don't care for the Hunger Games movies that much. They're okay, they're fine. I'm excited for Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes because I like that movie a lot more. But just take a step away from the stuff that has already been made, and let's do some new stuff, because that new stuff is where we will get some interest in the fantasy genre back. And I guess that's really all I have to say, so I will end that there. I don't know how long this video is. I could kind of check. It's been about 10 minutes, I think. So that's alright. I will end it there. Thank you guys for watching, and Erudite Adventure. We post videos every Monday and Thursday, and our social media is linked in the description down below. We will see you guys again soon. Stay well.